And I'm generally quite good at unpicking a complicated problem and breaking it down into the very next step. I'm absolutely terrible at seeing a plan through from the start to the very end when you get the result.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Fail with Fire. I'm your podcast host, Phoenix Ha, CEO and co-founder of my favorite first-party data and optimization platform. Today we have a really special guest, and it's probably, it's a funny one because we have shared the stage of affiliate world, but not in the same country. So mine's going to be Dubai, his is going to be Budapest, but welcome, Shahbaz.
Hey, good to see you.
So I will do our formal introduction, and then I'd love our informal introduction. It's actually really funny, but Shahbaz is the CEO of Venture Beyond, an e-commerce growth agency that scales e-commerce brands through paid social, creative production, and CRO since 2020. He's transformed a modest team of 3 into a powerhouse of 40 e-commerce super wizards headquartered in the UK. Under his leadership, a beauty brand soared, from 900,000 to 65 million in annual revenue. A major luggage retailer successfully transitioned to e-commerce. A cold start Kickstarter brand pivoted to 8 figures in revenue. And several brands have been propelled to achieve 7 and 8-figure revenues, underpinning the successes of Venture Beyond as a creative production machine that produces 1,000+ creatives per month for brands, scaling them through semi-automated media buying and continuous CRO testing. Welcome to the
night. You've done the introduction. I don't need to introduce myself. Done.
Yeah, I just feel like it's easier, just got it out of the way. But the funny part is you just reached out to me on Twitter. That's how we got to know each other. And it was the best ways to spark friendships. And relationships.
Yeah. And I love when people introduce me because it means I don't have to talk about myself because I just kind of hate doing that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks.
That's the same way for me. Well, we're happy to have you as a guest here. Something that we traditionally do on the podcast is we talk about just how the family members, the people we love, our loved ones, sometimes don't know what we do for work, and sometimes they do. And it's also really interesting to see the human side of things. So if I was at a barbecue and your wife pulled me and was like, you need to meet my husband, Shahbaz, you guys need to meet. How would she introduce you? What would she say you do for work?
Oh my God. I think it really depends on who's asking because the level of answer is it's not like you have a standard job role, is it? Where we could just say, hey, we do this thing. Do I introduce myself as an entrepreneur? Is it a digital marketer? Is it an e-commerce growth specialist? I think it would depend on who's asking the question. But I think in general, probably my wife would introduce me as an entrepreneur. Just because I've done so many different businesses over the years, so it's hard to kind of put me in a box. Specifically, even though my main focus right now is e-com, she'd probably say he's an entrepreneur, he's selling products online, does a lot of Facebook ads.
Does she know the in-depth what you do, or is she kind of high level, kind of?
She learns what I do through the amount of complaining I do about different things. So if she usually hears all the biggest problems first, I'm like, oh, do you know what, this keeps happening or that keeps happening. And I don't tell her every single problem, every minutia all the time, because there wouldn't be enough time in the day for me to talk about all the problems. But she definitely gets a flavor for what I do based on that kind of 2 minutes in the evening when I come home and I tell her, which I'll claim to be 2 minutes. Sometimes she claims to be 2 hours. But some days you just need to do that.
He's probably right. The women are usually right. It probably was 2 hours.
Probably.
No. Yeah, it's funny. The reason why I ask is my husband, for example, does his best to understand what I do. My sister does her best to understand what I do. Sometimes I test them. All right, Lucy, what do I do? And I love that the question to others, and their answers are one of our guests said that the wife would only say that's the love of my life, and that's my best friend, right? And some other people were I don't know, they press buttons on the internet. So I always find it the funniest question ever because you just never know.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's got a good idea of what I do. I kind of do share some of the problems I have, more so people-related problems because I'm just apparently terrible at dealing with people-related stuff. So usually I'll kind of the circumstance, I'll be like, oh, this person said this and did that. And she'll literally just be like, you're being stupid, just say this to this person in this way. And I'm like, you're so right. and then I'll go and do it. So like, Rich is very good at handling those kind of related issues, and like, so we'll bring that to her. And
I mean, leads me to a really interesting question because, you've had a lot of growth with your, you went from, what was it, 3 to 40 employees and your team. So you're saying sometimes you're not great with people. And that actually is funny because we talk about the types of leaders we are in the space. So a lot of people who've been on this podcast are founders or CEOs or leading bodies of teams. And we all have different management styles. We also have different fail with fire styles. In other words, when shit hits the fan, how do we react? What kind of leader do you say you are, honestly? And then versus the one, right?
Honestly, what kind of leader am I? I think I'm quite good at like inspiring people to get them going. To give them that initial energy and inertia to figure out what to do next. And I'm generally quite good at unpicking a complicated problem and breaking it down into the very next step. I'm absolutely terrible at seeing a plan through from the start to the very end when you get the result. And that's like my biggest weakness is like, okay, I just kind of just get the itch and want to do something different. So as a result, I kind of always end up spending my time doing new projects in the business. So I'll be the person who kind of like comes in, gets something going, passes it across as quickly as I can to other people. And in the past, I was really bad at doing that. The passing across to other people bit, I was pretty bad at it just because, I was always just trying to like do everything myself. And I think over time, the competency of the people I work with has definitely increased, actually skyrocketed compared to the team that we had. So we scaled from 3 people to 40 people within pretty much 18 months of me joining the company. But the quality of the people we had in the team was not where I wanted it to be at. So like the last kind of 2 years I've spent kind of naturally through attrition, people have either left or we've let them go, and then better people have come in. We've kind of improved the quality of the team. Rather than improving headcount, and it's a much better place to be. So in the past, I wasn't able to outsource, I think, to the right people. And then more so nowadays, I'm trying to recognize that I'm terrible at seeing things through to completion. Identify that I'm good at getting these going, getting people hyped, getting that energy going, figuring out the first few steps. I really enjoy like the engineering aspect of like things in general. I've come from like quite a numeric background, so I did maths at uni. I was an accountant, did my qualification there. I've always had like a mind for like technology and those kind of things. So I'll always try and get stuck in, get something moving, and then now hand it over to people. And I think that's generally what I'm finding better at than other things. I think with the people stuff, I think I'm good with people, the people that work for me. I think I'm just a bit impatient. I don't know. I want something done in a certain way and I want it done now. And I feel like honestly, as a leader, to get anything done, I don't have to be a bit in the ring like that. And it's something that I've come to terms with over time because I was always like, I was very much probably 3-4 years ago, I was very much like, okay, keep everyone happy, people pleasing. You're just starting up for companies, you're trying to convince people it's in their best interest to come and work for you. The shoes on the other foot kind of things. And, we didn't have a lot going for ourselves other than me just saying, hey, this is cool, come and do this. So like, in a way, let's say the ground team with them not robust, right? And so naturally, I felt like, okay, I've got to keep everyone as happy as possible. But what I quickly learned is like, that doesn't get you anywhere very quickly. And in the end, you end up taking on the full burden of everything. And you've just got these people kind of hanging around in your vicinity, kind of annoying you. So like, the much better thing to do actually is get people who are competent, get them upskilled, and then mentor them and coach them. So like most of the time now, like with the people I directly manage, and I directly manage, say, about 5 or 6 people. I'm more so a mentor than anything else. So I'll literally sit them down at least weekly, go through what they're working on, get them to give me their most complicated problem and try and break it down to them in like what are the most, into the constituent parts and give them a different alternate perspective. And I'll try and connect people with other people. So if they're missing a skill or they don't know how to do something, I'll be like, go talk to this person, or let me hook you up with this consultant, or this person is good at these things, let them do this part, and then you carry it on afterwards. I think that's been like really rewarding to me, like having that switch between having to do everything. Oh, my webcam is in, have this like cool feature on webcam, but it interferes every time. But it's like Iron Man, like you see that in.
Again.
Let's take it back out. There you go. They'll get used to it. You can switch off that say. But yeah, no. So I've switched more to like kind of a mentorship type thing. I enjoy that much more than having to like spell out exactly what to do. But I think that's a byproduct of hiring the right people and putting them around me. And I'm a lot more stringent on who I hire now because I just haven't got any patience. And also after having a kid, because that's my major life update, and I've got a 1-year-old, anybody who's a dad out there will know this. It's like you just run out of time. There's no time to do anything, right? You've got, especially if you're in business, you've got business, you've got baby, you've got wife, right? And then you've got family. And between all of that, you don't have any time for yourself. You're like, okay, well, all of these employees who are like annoying me, like, I'm sorry, but we need to find a better way of doing this. But as men, I've been a lot better at, let's say, letting people go when they should have been let go, finding better people, being a lot more stringent on the recruitment process, so triggering out, I really didn't build to work with this person. And letting people go very quickly, like within the first 1, 2, 3 weeks, letting somebody go that should be let go. Whereas in the past, in 6 months, in a drain, we wished and hoped and they never worked out. Usually how someone performs in the first 1 or 2 weeks is the best they're ever going to perform in terms of motivation. If they're not doing something really amazing in those first few weeks, like we know it's definitely not going to work. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm lost.
It does. I think it paints a pretty vivid picture as to how you process information and how, first things first, you're like, oh, what I took from what you said is that you're not an executor, you're a visionary. And some of the best CEOs are like that. I'm somewhat trying to be more like that and less on the executional front. So I used to be like that. I called it my ADD complex, where the thing is, you have the same thing. I've noticed the theme through everybody I've interviewed is we all get bored very easily. So when we get bored easily, we hop on to the next thing. The problem with me is I can't move on until something's finished, which is a good and bad thing. We have a joke that I'm a very linear person, right? It has to A to B to C and has to make sense, or else I will not move on. I will be stuck on it. And it's like, it's a roadblock. But you have this beautiful ability to keep going. And I also think surrounding yourself with people who are really great executors, very similar to yourself. When I'm in process, I'm really careful who I put in my corner, because then I will please them. I will nurture them. I will be there for them, knowing that they have the tenacity for growth. And they're not self-aware.
Yeah. Do you know what is like a little benchmark I have for those people is like in Slack, do I enjoy reading their DMs or do I not enjoy reading their DMs? Like, am I waiting to like open it and be like, oh, this is going to be sick. I want to read this. I want to find out what this person is up to. They've made my life easy. I'm going to come in, going to be amazed by what they've done. And I'm just going to give some feedback, some tweaks, some directions, and I can shout about this to everybody else. Or am I going to come in and have to redo the job because it's not been done correctly? And if it's the latter group of people now, I think when you're early stage in business and you're trying to basically save money and not spend a lot of money on overheads and you're hiring at kind of cheaper salaries and things like that, is that naturally you're going to get more of that second group, unless you find your outliers, people who are going to follow you for the cause, or, younger people maybe who, are willing to kind of be mentored but got the right kind of attitude. I think that over time, naturally you start to make more money in business, you can hire more senior people, the good ones stick with you as well. I've been with you for some time and we've got people who've been with us for the whole kind of last 4 or 5 years. Have seen every single stage of the business, from us being in like a tiny room to like, the upgraded office a few times. And yeah, like I think that's my benchmark is like, do I enjoy reading their DMs?
It's the Slack DM. That's like the brilliant. Okay, so we really welcome failure in this podcast because failures are often the catalysts to actual change. We've been saying this through and through in this season that the right failures end up changing your DNA. They end up showing, I'm not doing that again, or I am doing that again, or you grow from it. Now, a failure without the fire, the catalyst to change, to come back, is that in itself failure. But if you can learn and grow from that failure, then it becomes something important and it becomes fuel to really great things. So I welcome you to the floor because as much as we are all in D2C, this is not a D2C podcast. This is a failure podcast. And I don't want to highlight your successes. I already did that. I want to highlight your failure because that's the shit that people need to hear in order for you to get to now from the 3 to the 4 to wherever you're going to go in your next career as well. You need to learn from that. So I will open the floor to you. Personal failure, financial failure, professional failure, whichever you want to share, go for it.
Oh, man, such a long list. Like, where do you even start from? You're completely right. It's like the tip of the iceberg that people see when they see some success, and they don't kind of see all the kind of failures and problems that you kind of came into. Where do I start? I'll start with I guess, what maybe might be the biggest overall failure or like lesson that kind of right there. I remember reading a book called, well, I read the first page of the book. I didn't actually read the book. It was something like Share Trading for Dummies. And this is like a long time ago. And it said in there, something that stuck in my head, which was the worst thing you could ever do is make money on your first trade. And the reason is because if you make money on your first trade, you're going to think you're an absolute genius. And then you're going to do everything wrong from that point onwards. The best thing that you can do is actually fail, because then you realize, okay, this is actually a wake-up call and I need to figure out how to do this properly. And kind of that underpins a lot of that line in that book, even though I didn't read the whole book and it's a city book. It kind of like did stick in my head for a long time, and it resonates with me now. Like I'd say like, because my background is I did quite a few different businesses. At one point I was like over an average. I was just doing way too many things. And that's like one definite thing that I would not recommend anybody to do. So in my head, I had it, okay, I'm going to be this kind of portfolio entrepreneur, going to have lots of different businesses, fingers in lots of pies. It's going to be amazing, going to make lots of money. And at one point I had gym, 16 Airbnb. I'd bought and sold 20 properties in 2 years. I'd done a development of 18 flats, which was just finishing off at that time. I had a cleaning business with 25 cleaners. I'd just started this e-commerce growth agency that I'm working on now. And I had a property community business, which was like an online community business, right? So I think that's 6 or 7 different things on the go. And you soon start to realize like, this is just not possible. You can't do that. And I've got a land business as well where I buy and sell land. So now I'm down to just 2 businesses. I have a land business, which I'm an investor in. I'm not in the daily actives yet, so I provide funding. And I've got a partner in there. And I've just got the e-commerce growth agency, from which we're going to launch brands and stuff like that. So I think like one kind of like, I don't know if it's a failure or a lesson, just don't do too many things at once, because it's just not going to be very good at it. Even if you think you're amazing, I think back to what you said is like, you should start something and finish something, or at least surround yourself with people who can finish that thing for you. And I think as a general byproduct of that, people love to hear numbers, right? So when I did my first property development, it was the first 7 figures in profit that I made. And this was like by the time I was about early 30s, right? And I went and did what probably everybody does when they like make their first bit of money, went and bought like 6 or 7 cars in 1 year. And it was the most stupid thing to ever do. You can't drive that many cars. They all require maintenance. When you buy all the classic cars and stuff, I bought like a couple of my previous cars and stuff. I was like, in the end, you drive it once, like, why did I even buy this stupid thing? Definitely don't do that. But then it kind of also like distracts your attention away from like the next step. So I made a lot of money in property, and then I was like, okay, what do I do next? But I wasn't paying attention to where I was losing money. So whilst I might have made 7 figures doing a property deal, it took me a couple of years, I was simultaneously losing money from my gym, 50, 20,000. This is the first time I've publicly said this. 50, 20,000 pounds a month was going, we're in the UK, by the way, we use pounds. Every single month was going out, I was going negative. And what happened is we'd had a competitor come into the market. Then we went into COVID and the situation got even worse. And basically I wasn't paying attention to that business. I wasn't in there daily. I wasn't checking in on the management. I wasn't figuring out what the problem was and actually attacking the growth over there. I was too distracted away from making money over here. I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to pay attention to this because it feels good. And I was avoiding the thing that felt bad. And I almost just avoided opening the bank account and being like, shit, another one, another month. So like, I ended up losing quite a lot of money over there overall. And I think that was because I took my eyes off of the fact that it was losing money and I wasn't checking the bank every day. One thing I would definitely say to everybody, and I'm still need to do this more and more, and I keep reminding myself, is check your bank every day. Stop being scared of looking at the bank. Everybody, I don't know why people like don't do it. And even I'm guilty of this as well, right? Just check it every day. In business, you've got to do that. You need to know what's coming in, what's going out, what's going on. You need to track everything. We use about 50 or 60 different softwares in the agency. And we found that we had so many duplicate licenses, so many like softwares not being used, and we ended up tidying up and we saved a few thousand dollars a month just by doing that. But anyway, so like, I guess the lesson is, and overall, I probably lost about $500,000 doing the gym in total, right? I ended up selling it for just a break even. Like, I think 40K in the end, just a break up value. So whilst I've made money doing property development, I was losing money on the gym and I didn't pay attention to it. And then I'd probably say the next thing is like, don't over leverage yourself in terms of financially as well. Like always something so property development is very much like famine and feast. It's like you make loads of money, you spend loads of money, and it takes ages and then you get to the next step. And my land business is very similar. So like we'll have a deal come in, you make a load of money, and then you've got to invest into other deals, and then it comes back every 3 to 5 years. And so that's really the reason why I actually got into e-commerce in the first place, because my two partners who had already established a business before I came on board, so that's when they were just, they'd done it 2 years beforehand, and I came on and then built the team out. They had a cash flowing business, and I was looking at that thinking, okay, this kind of business cash flows every month. So that kind of fills the gap of me having to invest into this more longer term cash kind of business. And it kind of fills both of those gaps. But it took me ages to get to that point to realize, like, hey, you made a lot of money, you're investing into this other business, but you need to replace that cash flow. Where's it going to come from? So I guess like the general picture here is don't buy too many cars learning. It's definitely a waste of time. And it gets boring very quickly. Like bought a Lambo, I drove it like 50 miles in a year, and that was it. It's done. I just sold it last year actually, but I was there kind of in the end, just like frustrated about the fact that he would made that decision. And then if you're gonna diversify and do things, make sure you pay close attention to the fact that you're no longer paying close attention to. So have some kind of checks and measures in place where you know that thing is heading the right direction. And don't let it go unless you know it's going in the right direction. Don't go and start the next thing until you've kind of paid attention to that. And that's my $500,000 mistake. Basically lost a lot of money on that.
There's a couple of key things that are really funny here, because there's this hustle culture we've been a part of grind, build, right? So you diversified your portfolio with multiple businesses, which again, very successful in. But the thing is they are living, breathing businesses, and they need nurturing and time. And it's like a ship, right? And then you've got a bunch of holes in the ship, and you don't realize which hole is bigger. You don't have enough hands, and you're going, wait a minute. And it's funny because you have a background in accounting. So it's not to say you're not qualified. It's not to say that you don't know what you're doing. It just means that it just didn't happen. And the thing of cars that I find so funny. So we talk about Affiliate World, and, Affiliate World was really funny for me because everyone wants to talk about the successes at these types of conferences. Not a knock on them. It's just funny because I would sit there and everybody was renting out a Lamborghini, right? This perceived value notion that I'm just not a big fan of. And I sit there and I laugh because I come from a background where my mom's boyfriend was fairly wealthy. And I recall when we were at one point, he bought a Viper. At the time, the Viper was like the shit. It was like the Lambo of its time.
Did it have the stripes down the white stripes?
Yep. And I remember when he first got it, it was his like toy, right? So he would just ride it around. That man rode that started that Lamborghini once every 3 months just to make sure the battery wouldn't die. Like that was where it lives. I think it still lives in this car garage of this giant medical office, just sitting there collecting dust. I don't even think they drive it every 3 months anymore. And I was very lucky because that was my first indication of these material items don't mean shit. And like where you put your money needs to make money. And then also on top of that, experiences. So it's funny that you're learning all these things, coming into money, losing money, right? And again, diversifying your portfolio is not a bad thing. But I always wonder, I'm so glad you said that, because I have so many friends that have their hands so many things. And in my mind, I'm pretty good at multitasking. How are you doing this? Like, how is this, unless you have a full team behind you, like a Beyonce or like, somebody that you have a payroll of people managing your shit. This is very to do. So I'm so glad you highlighted that. Walk me through the pain of when you finally did open your bank account and finally do what you're recommending people to do.
I think I only actually counted how much I lost on the gym when I finally sold it, because I was like closure for me. And also it was a bit like weirdly emotional. I don't know. So basically I'd always done some kind of trading on the side since I've been 16 years old, right? So a long time. I'd gone to selling on eBay. I was a ticket reseller. I've been a wedding photographer. I've lots of cars. So there's lots of things I've done, right? And generally speaking, those things went relatively smoothly because they were quite easy to manage. Or just me doing stuff, right? So it's like if you're in control of your own time and you're the only person doing it, you can get things done, right? And there's no like human aspect of getting other people to get things done, which is much less predictable. And then I kind of like went through all my exams at uni, did what people might perceive a difficult degree. And I kind of just got through it all, passed all my exams, did my 15 accounting exams, right? I passed them all first time. And I just kind of had this thing everything's just so felt straightforward. Didn't feel difficult. I worked for it, but it didn't feel difficult. I just felt like I wasn't really pushing myself. I was at like 10% or something, or 20% of my ability. Then I opened the gym and I was like, fuck, this is hard. This literally felt like the hardest thing I'd ever done. And it was a massive like ego check of like, man, I thought I was going to crush it because I'd done all this thing in the past. I already made a bit of money. I was making more money on the side of being an accountant than being an accountant. And that's what actually pushed me to end up leaving. So I thought, okay, I'm going to kind of ace this. It's going to be fine. And then opened the gym first month. Well, didn't hit the targets. We were already kind of like on the back foot.
Gyms are so hard.
One of the hardest rooms, really tough.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, I'm really surprised that you went into that. I didn't mean to interrupt, but like, I used to work in gyms and I'm like, this is a drainer, not a maker. Like, how would you, what was enticing? Because I heard a long time through like the grapevine, gyms are where it's at. That's where you need to invest. Is that what you got sucked into? What enticed you to do the gym?
Honestly, everyone always asks me the same question and there's no like sexy story behind it. I was literally walking on my lunch break and I went into a gym and it was like this kind of meathead gym, which has got like people, mainly like powerlifting gym, right? And the service was just so terrible. The guy was needing at the desk and he's like, okay, the membership is like 40 quid a month. Do you guys say quid in America? Do you say quid? No, pounds, sterling. For your week. So the membership was like $40, $50 per month, right? And I was like, if this guy can't even run his gym properly, can't even like say hello to the people coming in, surely this can't be that difficult. And I think that's what triggered the thought. And then I went online. Then I actually found the Anytime Fitness franchise, which you guys have got loads of in America. Got in contact with them. And that's the gym that I basically ended up opening. So there was no like kind of specific plan. It was just serendipitous, just walked into a gym, went on my lunch break, on board, looked online, spoke to them. That was it. It's pretty much like how I started every single other business, to be honest. There's never a plan. It just kind of happened. So that's how I got into the gyms.
That's so funny. Let me just like rephrase this for you. It's like you're going to Chick-fil-A, or like, let's just say you're going to like, let's just say you went to, I don't know if you don't have any Chick-fil-A's. I'm just going to put these McDonald's. Handsome University done one. You go to a McDonald's and you don't like the customer service. So you say, you know what? I'm going to start my own In-N-Out, which is like insane, right? You're like, I'm going to do it because I didn't like the customer service. We assume that we can do things better. That doesn't mean you didn't, but there were so many other factors we weren't really considering. And this happens very often. When you said gym, everything in my body went, oh no. So the same thing with like restaurant. I go, oh no. It's like I've seen these, they're so difficult to do. And then by the time you do hit the success, you like don't even care about it because you're so tired at that point.
Yeah.
But to your point, if you would have made money immediately from the gym, which just seemed like at first maybe you might have, or no, it's always been a loss center.
First couple of months is that struggle where I was like, okay, honestly, at one point I felt like I'm not cut out for this. Like I thought I was always going to do an entrepreneur, and I had that mug of like, you know what, I've made a mistake here, and which turned around. Somebody said to me some advice, which I've mentioned before to people, but you basically said like, okay, Shahbaz, how many years are you into your full-time entrepreneurial journey? I was like, 2 weeks. He's like, okay, you're going to retire when? I said, I'm never going to retire. I'm going to keep going. So he said, okay, look, if you live an average life, you're going to be there for 50 years. It's like, you're 2 weeks into a 50-year stint. Like, why are you crying? Just get up on your feet, carry on. And I was like, obviously, when you put it into that perspective, I was like, you're completely right, And that was probably, 8 years ago now, I think, give or take. But I don't know how we got to this point here. I always lose my way when I'm talking about this kind of stuff. But
you build this is for freedom. But then you lose your freedom in certain businesses. It's the funniest thing in the world because that side of business is so hard because it's such a, and again, we don't have to go super in depth. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted as well, but it's like the retention aspect of gyms is dependent on how serious someone is about fitness, and people who are very serious about fitness work their ways out of gyms. So I don't really think about that. When you get to the level of fitness where you're like at a level where you're really high, you end up building your own home gyms where these side gyms are just options. And then the people that are coming in that need gyms are looking for like, okay, maybe I'll come through. So maybe that's like 20% of the business. And then the other, I would say 60% is people just churning or not showing up.
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole business was built around people not showing up, right? So most, you guys have got Planet Fitness and all that kind of stuff. The whole model is built around like most people should not show up, and the targets are usually around about on average gyms. I could tell you around about 50% of people show up at least once a month. It's only people who show up once a month, right? So if you count the people who are coming in 3 times a week, that's like in probably the single teen digits, 15, 20% maybe. And if everyone turned up, they wouldn't make a profit.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm scarred by the gym. I used to work at Gold's Gym, and I thought it's how they make the how they make the food, and you're like, oh, I hate it. But yeah, anyway, no, I really appreciate you opening that up because I think a lot of people would take a lot of value from it, including myself. It's a good reminder. I always feel like I want to diversify my portfolio, and it is a good thing to do, but also how do you manage it? And if you're not going to manage it, who's going to manage it? Open your bank account. Those were really beautiful things to say. Now, that being said, we always end out this podcast with this idea of a hot take. And I think it's important. We just went through an election in the US that impacts the rest of the world. You could talk about that. You could talk about you hating a specific type of food. You could talk about D2C Twitter. I don't mind. What is your hot take right now in this space?
Hot take. But finally, with just you mentioned DC Twitter last, I think it's funny because I got outreach by a Meta rep literally yesterday, and I spoke to her. He's a UK based rep, and she said, "Who's your competition?" And I reeled out like a few different US agencies, and she's like, "I've never heard of all these people before. Like, how have I not heard of this?" And worked at Meta for 5 years, and it just reminded me of one thing, which is like, our viewpoints on the world are very, 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 very skewed by our algorithms, which basically are not determined by us and determined by other people. And we must remember this, and we must sometimes just close the app and actually figure out what's going on for real. And she listed a whole load of other agencies in the UK. I was like, "Oh, I've never heard of these guys before. I need to go check them out, see what they're up to." And it was just a reminder that like, hey, there's other people with other feeds, right? If I look at my wife's feed on Instagram, it's got like a whole different world. Her world looks completely different. She thinks the world is upside down to how I see the world, and vice versa, right? So I'd say like overall, like this is top of mind for me. It's like, and I do this. I create burner accounts where like I just go and follow like a bunch of other pages, and the number of like beauty videos I've watched, the number of like tutorials I've watched on Vogue, like on like people doing their makeup and stuff. Basically, I've like trained a few different other algorithms on like different personalities to try and figure out how other people see the world. And I'd say that just always remember that there's a very, very different perspective on the other end of the internet, and don't become like an echo chamber. Don't become so overly focused on what you look at every single day, because you're just looking at the same people and the same shit all the time. And like, it's the same names keep coming up, right? You're like, hang on a second, there's like zillions of people in the world. Why am I listening to these 5, 10, 15, 20 people? It doesn't work like that. That's not the world.
Shahbaz, you was soon to be, and you keep it that way. No, it's funny because I think the theme of what you're saying is you ain't shit is one of my favorite things. Is like, you really aren't. And if you think you're the shit, you're an idiot. You're a thimble. And I also love this idea that like so my hot take is, if you idolize somebody, just know there's someone better. So when I used to be a model, you and I had very similar backgrounds in that we've tried so many different occupations, or like I would say journeys in life of different things to dabble in, which I love talking to people like that, because you don't have a very small or narrow-minded viewpoint in life. You don't have one experience. You have multiple. Flavor, right? You got some flavor, some seasonings. But for me with modeling, it was one like reality, and then I'm in D2C and it's another reality, and then I was a dancer, a professional dancer, and there's another reality, but only one theme remains the same. There will always be better people coming up behind you and in front of you. And if you think you're the best, you're already doing yourself a disservice. So you have to compete with yourself. And that's all it is. And then maybe you'll end up at the top, but by the time you're at the top, you don't even care about being at the top, in my opinion.
I think what you realize at the end is nothing is that important as you think it is. And like, you'll only realize that after the event. So just try and put yourself in your own shoes after the event, and you'll soon start to realize that you shouldn't take everything so seriously. And that's the way I try to look at things.
Yeah. You've got your baby, you've got your wife, and you got your business. Like those are the things that matter. And then all the outlying factors are just variables and who
Yeah.
cares? And like I said this on a different episode. It's like at the end of the day, you could lose it all. We've gained it all and we could lose it all. But if you can look into your right with your partner and your family and go in a cardboard box and be like, okay, I love you. Like we're good. We'll figure it out. But if you hate the people you surrounded yourself with, you did yourself.
Yes. And I think people go crazy like creating an image of themselves to the world, and they then have to uphold themselves to that image. And that image is usually based around materialistic stuff, like your house, your car, these kind of things. Honestly, I don't care. Like like if I have to jump in like a Honda Civic and go and drive it around the block, I literally just don't care. Like it's just I'll do that all day long.
I want to get rid of my Tesla as soon as possible and get like a Lexus hybrid or a Toyota hybrid. I don't care anymore. You said something so funny. You said you bought all these cars. When I was modeling my first big chunk of change, I bought a new BMW X1. I think it was an X1. I had it. I loved it. Maintenance was an ass. Like it was terrible. And then I got hit by an 18-year-old uninsured driver and I lost everything. I didn't even break even. I lost money. And I'm like, I don't even have money to trade this for a new car. So then I ended up driving this old beater that I used to, drive when I was in high school. And I realized, like, who cares? Like, I don't care. What is it for me to pull up to a stranger so they go, oh, she has a nice car, therefore she has, like, who cares? And when your perspective changes, everything unlocks. So,
Yeah. And I'll conclude that point with Mark Cuban said something. He said, beware the man in the t-shirt. And it's like, it's so true. Like basically people who like show their wealth on the other side, they haven't really got much. They've just made a little bit right. So like when I made a list in that I bought these cars or whatever, and like they put up this image that then uphold and that becomes stressful or whatever, blah, blah, blah. The people who've got a real money and they're really doing some stuff, they just don't care. Like you'll just see them in a t-shirt and that's it.
No brand names. I had a friend ask me the other day, like, what are you wearing? Because I'm more of a fashion forward take on life. And I was like, literally for the last 2 years, I've worn no brands on purpose. And the only brands I'll wear are small brands I want to support. And it's like, beware of the t-shirt mentality. I live near Malibu. Some of the most wealthy people here are the ones that look the most homeless. Like, it's just this weird juxtaposition where they pull up in sandals and like, they look like trash, which I'm all for. I love comfort. And you realize, oh my gosh, this is the person that owns all of this land. This whole complex is theirs. Oh my gosh. And then you guy in like the really nice suits with the Gucci slides. And then, like watches and you're just like, okay, that person's peacocking. But yes, you and I are so aligned. That being said, how can people find you? How can people come in contact with you? I know that you want to be more public now. This is
I've been told it's good shoes from Bottle Public, and actually I've been posting a bit more on LinkedIn recently, and I've had some things happen to me that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't started posting. So overall, I think I should do it. But yeah, LinkedIn, you can find me, just type in my name. Twitter, you can find me, just type in Shabaraptor. That name's been around with me for ages. And same on Instagram, you can have me there if you want.
Okay, awesome. We'll have it in the show notes regardless, but we are honored to have you. Thank you for being on the podcast, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day listening in. Don't forget to subscribe, and we have another episode coming up soon. Bye.